Thank you, everyone. It's great to see you. My talk today is about something that's haunted me for decades, because at the core of it is lost knowledge. Chocolate, its very existence, is threatened by climate change. Within the next 25 years, major production may cease. I'm a chocoholic, and that really disturbs me. In fact, my first response is to eat chocolate when I hear that news. I'm in genetics, and I help people understand the genes of plants and animals and humans. And the reason why this particular issue haunts me, we actually have hope in cancer, but chocolate has very complicated genetics, and other crops as well are threatened by climate change. And there's two reasons, and it's the core of this lost knowledge, which was a gift. They were domesticated thousands of years ago when the climate was cooler and before writing. The second part of the problem is the wild types that we can back cross, maybe a little bit of CRISPR-Cas, maybe one or two genes can splice in to help it make it more resilient. When knowledge is lost, you can't Google it. You can't ask Chat GPT, how do I do this? And the gardens where these wild things grow are vanishing at an alarming rate, so that knowledge is on its way to getting lost. Let's defy the odds. For chocolate, so that it can survive, let's reinvent them. And in order to reinvent them, I want to provide a message of hope. And what is the hope? It's going to come from two other crops today, wheat and corn. Wheat is so important, it's bread. Bread is life. Corn not only is food, it drives our chemical industries. And both of these crops have active climate change programs to become more resilient. That is how we're going to reinvent the odds. Is this something that creates geopolitical tension right now? Let's go to the first map. That red bubble is over the Ukraine, and this map is from 2022. The world's largest military action since World War II. Tanks are rumbling from the north, artillerymen from the east, frogmen or navymen up from the south into the Ukraine. But our story is human, and it's in that smaller red dot. That's Kharkiv. The Plant Production Institute of Kharkiv. The scientists are afraid as the tanks come in rolling through the streets. They're afraid that they are going to be attacked. They're right. May 6th and 8th of 2022, their labs were blown to smithereens. Their fields where the plants were growing to protect the wild things, shot to smithereens. But they had prepared and they had help. In the dark of night, they hand carried out their plants and their seeds. When they couldn't walk them anymore, they passed them off to commandos who again risked their lives to take the plants to eastern Ukraine and the seeds up to Norway to the Svalbard seed bank. And they were resilient that day. The wild things survived. Let's keep going and bring more hope. That's going to take us to 1970, a long time ago. But this story is about corn. And why I'm confident that we can have resilience is because we did it back in 1970 with corn. It started off a hotter than usual spring and rainier. That is fantastic for mold. So much mold, we called it the southern corn leaf blight. Farmers saw this ucky thing. Oh, before we go into corn, I've got to tell you, when is wheat at its climate tipping point? Wheat is at its climate threshold of 2 degrees C. That means if the planet gets hotter than 2 degrees C, current production is threatened. It's fragile, but wheat is a grass. It grows fast. Let's see, what did NASA measure all across the globe as the temperatures in 2024? The average was 1.47 degrees C. And why do we measure it from pre-industrial levels? That seems kind of odd. Well, first of all, plants, thousands of years ago, they grew up in colder climes. But second of all, at the Industrial Revolution, we started to burn fossil fuels, gas, oil, that created a blanket that surrounded the Earth that heat couldn't escape. Now, I mapped the NASA temperatures over the 5 major producing wheat. Let's see if it's too hot right now. Those green boxes are the 5 countries where wheat is most produced in the world in 2024. Ukraine's out, it's a war zone. You can immediately see it's too hot in most regions. Are we going to have hope? We're going to have hope because of 1970 and corn. Let's take a look. Again, that spring was warmer and wetter than normal, which creates yucky mold in corn anywhere where it was fast growing. And back in 1970, corn was by and large a monoculture. That's kind of a big word. It just means 85% of what we planted was genetically the same. So that mold could spread like wildfire. Knee-high by the 4th of July, not in 1970. In some Great Plains, 50 to 70% of the corns were fallen over because they couldn't stand on their own. But our scientists, they collaborated, the seed banks, the big land-grant universities and research institutes, and botanical gardens around the world where the wild things grow. They collaborated. What did they need? They needed this, Indian corn. They needed the wisdom of the ancestors locked in the seeds that we cannot CRISPR-Cas back into today. We do not know how they did it, and it took hundreds of years. But they could take the pollen from those corns and they could paint it into the research fields. And by 1971, they put 5 genes from 5 different strains back into the corn, and we started to have more resilient corn. It might have taken us to 1973 to get full production, but we did, because there's hope for chocolate if we follow these programs of climate change. This is my professor, Hugh Iltis, from the University of Wisconsin. He is standing in a garden he fought for. What are you noticing about this picture? It's black and white. It's from a long time ago. And there's not a lot of corn, and it's small. It could be plowed over, and cash crops could be grown in there. Illicit cash crops that make a lot more money than Indian corn, or it could just go back to the woods. How fast is that train of extinction facing these gardens? E.O. Wilson estimated 10,000 times faster than the natural rate of change. We're in Washington, D.C. right now. Some of us take the fast train to New York. That takes us up there in about 2 hours, 45 minutes. Speed that up 10,000 times, less than 2 seconds to get there. Now think about Hugh standing in his garden. This is a real problem to save where the wild things are. Where are we with chocolate? Its threshold is 2 degrees C. It loves living near the equator where temperatures are homogeneous but nice and hot and nice and rainy, but not too rainy. If it's too rainy, we get mold. I overlaid the NASA data once again. It doesn't look good. yellow 2 degrees C, orange 3 degrees C, 4 degrees C, and that big block on Africa, that's where 70% of our chocolate comes from. Do they have a production hit? They absolutely do. 2025, we're projecting 25% reduction. Is this the first year that's happened? Absolutely not. Is it going to be the last? No. We need resilience for chocolate, which is not on the endangered list right now. In this box that I want to share with you, I've got a present and a gift with ancestral knowledge in it. I want us to reinvent the odds for chocolate by working together and being creative. It is going to take all kinds of people, from engineers to botanists to anthropologists to genomicists. So let's do it. Thank you for listening, and I'm here to give you seeds of a new idea and a new future. Thank you.